There's a cliche that gets repeated all the time in creative work, which is that starting is the hardest part. I'm not entirely sure I believe that. Starting is hard, definitely. Putting your face on camera for the first time, hearing your own voice back, watching yourself do all the little things that you wish you didn't do. Yes, that is pretty unpleasant. At least it was for me. If you're the sort of person who naturally loves to be on camera, who likes hearing themselves speak, who watches an edit of themselves back with warmth rather than dread, then fair enough. You may have a different experience. I do not, and it's still fairly excruciating. Even then, I don't think that the first episode is the hardest though. I think it's the second episode. Because the first one, in a strange way, almost writes itself. You know what it is, you know it's your introduction, it's who you are, it's why you're there, why you've started, what you care about, what you think the channel might become. It has this natural momentum because it carries all the energy of beginning. Even if you're nervous, even if you hate talking to camera, there's still something built into that first upload that gives it shape. It has such a clear reason to exist. The second episode is where that support disappears though, and that's where you suddenly realise that starting a YouTube channel is not quite the same thing as becoming a YouTuber. The first upload is just basically an announcement. The second is the work. That, I think, is the harder moment, because now you have to decide what the thing actually is, or what it will be. What does the channel feel like? How long are the videos? Are they thoughtful, rambling essays, tight reviews, vlogs, comparisons, conversations? Are you trying to teach, entertain, document, analyse, confess, show off, think out loud? How much of yourself goes into it? How polished should it be? How often can you realistically do it without beginning to resent it? Those are much more difficult questions than simply pressing upload once. The first episode gets you over the threshold. The second asks whether you're actually prepared to walk any distance. That's why I keep wanting to encourage people, especially people who already work in video, photography, design, sound, whatever it may be, to start a channel now. Not because I think it will change your life by next Thursday, not because I think the algorithm is sitting there with a garland ready to place over your head, not because I think everyone should become some sort of creator economy goblin, forever refreshing analytics in a dark room. I mean, start because it's slow, rewarding, and surprisingly human work, because you probably know more than you think you do. Because the things that have been difficult for you will almost certainly be difficult for someone else, because there's genuine satisfaction in building something gradually, in public, over time. That slowness is not a flaw. I think it's part of the appeal for me. There's a lot of language around YouTube that makes it sound like a machine to be gamed. Growth, optimization, retention, engagement, packaging, hooks, thumbnails, click-through. All of that matters to a point. I'm not pretending otherwise. I spend plenty of time thinking about titles, thumbnails, what makes someone click. Yet if that becomes the whole frame, you miss the nicer part of it, which is that YouTube can feel a bit like writing a long novel in weekly installments. It has a steadier rhythm to it. It rewards accumulation, it rewards patience, it rewards showing up with something to say, even when what you've made this week is not your magnum opus. That's okay. That, to me, is where the pleasure lives. Because success in creative work is rarely instant. We know that. We say it all the time, yet somewhere in the back of our minds, many of us still hope that our version might be the exception, that we'll upload twice, crack the code, be lifted skyward by a glorious gust of discoverability, and then spend the rest of our lives thoughtfully comparing lenses in the sun, while the AdSense rolls in. Perhaps that happens to somebody. It is not, I think, the normal experience, though. The normal experience is much less dramatic, but probably much more rewarding. You make something, it's imperfect, you publish it anyway, a few people watch, one or two comment, somebody says that a point you made helped them, somebody asks a follow-up question, somebody else disagrees with you in a way that makes you refine your own thinking, you make another one. That second one is ever so slightly better, or perhaps ever so slightly worse. Then the third one is unexpectedly good, and then the fourth is a slog. And then 6 months later, you look back at all of it and realise you've improved substantially without really noticing it's happening. That is a lovely process. I genuinely think that's one of the biggest hurdles, particularly for people who already work professionally in video, is that YouTube asks you to loosen your grip a bit. In commercial work or documentary work or branded work or whatever else you do for clients, you're normally trying to produce the best piece of work possible within the budget, the time, the brief, the practical constraints. You are aiming, rightly, for excellence. You're trying to make something robust, considered and beautifully executed. YouTube is not that. That doesn't mean standards disappear. It doesn't mean sloppiness is a virtue. It doesn't mean you should just upload anything just because it's Tuesday. What it does mean is that perfection is not the main objective. Often perfection is even actively unhelpful. It slows you down, it makes you self-conscious, strips out the parts of you that people might actually connect with. There are so many very successful YouTube channels that aren't built on immaculate visuals, spectacular lighting, world-class production design, or clinical precision. They're just built on presence. They're built on rhythm. They're built on that companionable feeling that someone is talking to you rather than presenting at you. They're built on specificity. A real person with real taste, real flaws, real biases, real experience, trying to painfully often articulate what they think. And I think that matters, probably now more than ever, in an era of AI slop. that human component. Because if you're starting a YouTube channel in 2026, you're not stepping into an empty room, it's crowded. There's more gear coverage, more commentary, more advice, more top fives, more synthetic polish, more generic creator sludge than any sane person could ever need. Which means the thing that becomes more valuable, not less, is a recognizable human being on the other side of the lens. Not a perfect one, a recognizable one. That's why I wouldn't be too precious about your early uploads. In fact, I'd go further than that. I think preciousness is one of the main things that stops people building momentum. You make one video, then you hover over it like a Victorian aunt inspecting upholstery. Is the lighting quite right? Is my delivery odd? Do I sound ridiculous? Is this too plain, too niche, too slow, too rambling? Too much of me? Not enough of the subject? Not enough of me? Have I earned the right to speak on this? Does the background look stupid? Should I recut the first minute? Should I start again entirely? No, just publish it. And then work on the next one. Because the second one teaches you much more than endless refinement of the first ever will. This, I think, is where all the usual creator cliches become slightly less irritating, because hidden inside them is a grain of truth. People say your first 10 videos don't count, or your first 100 videos don't count, or you need to make content for a year before anything matters. I'm not really sure I agree with all the wording. Of course those videos count. They count enormously. They're the work. They're the reps. They're the years at sea, if you like, before you know the shape of the weather. They matter precisely because they're not slick, finished statements of identity. They're the process by which identity forms. And the point is not that they don't count. The point is that you are allowed to be provisional. And actually, if that idea has landed with you, that you are allowed to be provisional, that you do not need to arrive on YouTube fully formed, then do me a favor. Give the video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment if you're building a channel of your own, or even just thinking about it. I'm always interested to know who's at that stage of trying to get the thing off the ground. And between uploads, Instagram is probably the best place to keep up with what I'm doing. Bits of work, gear, fragments from shoots, the occasional useful thought that doesn't need a full video wrapped around it. So if you like the in-between bits, that's where you'll find me. I'm Jack Filmed. What I would really encourage you to do is build some kind of rhythm that suits your actual life, not the fantasy life of a hyper-optimized online person. I settled fairly early on one upload a week. That was the cadence that felt ambitious enough to keep me moving, realistic enough to be sustainable. Most weeks that's been pretty straightforward, but some weeks it's been really inconvenient. Still, over time, it's become part of the shape of my week in a way that I rather like. And that doesn't mean that weekly has to be the correct answer for you. Maybe you should upload fortnightly, maybe monthly, maybe twice a week. Maybe your life, job, family, health, energy, or finances mean that once every 3 weeks is the only sensible frequency. Fine. Better a pace you can sustain with some enjoyment than a schedule that turns your nice idea into a low-grade source of misery. Consistency matters. Yes, everybody says that because it's true. Yet consistency is not some moral virtue possessed only by the chosen few. It's mostly the outcome of making the thing small enough, frequent enough, achievable enough that you can keep returning to it. And that's why the very early stage is such a gift, really, because when you've got an audience in the single digits or the low double digits, the stakes are gloriously low. No one expects polish, no one minds if you experiment. It's the perfect time to mess around with formats, to try things that may not work, to discover what you actually enjoy making rather than what you think you ought to make. I still have plenty of formats I'd love to try. More conversational pieces, interviews maybe, or long chats with people more interesting than me, which wouldn't be difficult. Things that I suspect the algorithm may greet with a weary shrug. Yet that almost isn't the point. Some ideas are worth pursuing because they just broaden the channel, or teach you something, or make the whole enterprise more enjoyable to sustain. Not every upload has to be a breakout success. Some of them, most of them, are just there to keep the fire lit. And that, I think, is another thing worth saying to people who work in the creative industries already. You probably have more material than you realize, not in the sense of just endless B-roll. I mean experience, judgment, taste, irritations, solutions, mistakes, near misses, workflows you've improved, bits of kit you regret buying, bits of kit you unexpectedly love, awful shoots that taught you something useful, client conversations that made you rethink how you communicate, little inefficiencies, bigger philosophies. The things that seem mundane to you are often precisely the things that somebody else needs to hear, because you've already lived through problems they have not yet encountered. And that's why I keep coming back to this quarterly plea. Make the channel. Stop waiting until you feel like the finished version of yourself. There just isn't one. Stop waiting until your setup is perfect. It will never be. Stop waiting until you know exactly what the channel is. You'll discover that by making it. Stop waiting until you feel comfortable on camera. You may never feel fully comfortable. I'm not convinced that's a requirement. Start, yes. Then prepare yourself for the actual challenge, which is to continue. To make the second thing, then the third, then the seventh when the novelty is worn off, then the 12th when you're mildly embarrassed by the 10th, and the 23rd when you've begun to glimpse what the channel might become, and then the 40th when it started to become part of your life in a good, durable way. That is the bit that changes you. Not because it's glamorous, mostly it isn't. Not because it's instantly rewarding, it definitely isn't. It changes you because repeated self-expression has a way of clarifying what you think. Repeated publishing thickens the skin. Repeated conversation with viewers reminds you that there are real people on the other side of the screen. Repeated effort, applied over a long enough period, creates a body of work where previously there was just the idea of one. And that is satisfying in a very old-fashioned way. So no, I don't think that starting is the hardest part. I think the second episode is the hardest, because that's the moment the romance of beginning gives way to the discipline of becoming. That's where you find out whether this is a nice idea you had once, or a practice you're willing to build. Which is precisely why I think you should do it. Make the first one, certainly. Get it over with. Wince at your own face, your own voice, your own mannerisms. That has to be normal. Then make the second one. Because once you've done that, you're no longer just someone thinking about starting a YouTube channel. You're someone with a YouTube channel. I'm Jack. Whatever this is, I'm calling Western Approaches. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.